Stacey, I'm curious about your process. 5 years for each of these. Is this in any way pre-scripted?
No. I'll just talk briefly. I mean, I consider that I do work in the surrealist tradition, so I get a kind of a notion for a film, and then I just kind of get started and see what happens. There's too much material, first of all, for me to even remember it all at once. I just couldn't do that, and so I just try to construct the film literally in a chronological fashion, and then sometimes I go back and try to flesh out things that are particularly confusing. But and by the way, I want to thank you for laughing. I don't think anyone has ever laughed in one of my films before. That was great.
So one incident leads to another, sparks an idea. Is that pretty much how it works?
I have a general idea. I mean, I thought the first film, I had this idea that there'd be a woman in a house and there'd be some snakes and eggs. And then I thought, oh, what if she's sort of turning into a bird, but she doesn't really know how to feel about it? So, and then and then the rest of it I just had to, I actually animated the scene of her turning into with a kind of as a bird, as half a bird, at the very beginning. It was the first thing I did, and then I kind of had to work my way back. And it's funny because I was actually thinking about Hitchcock a lot, which I probably should have mentioned before you saw the film. But I was trying to make a film where it would start out feeling weird, but not too weird, and get stranger and stranger and stranger as the film went along.
So then, choosing the images of the actresses, I mean, does it ever have anything to do with the narrative that the film came from, or are you really looking for a visual that correlates with the mood?
I'm looking for action that seems like I could use it in the context of whatever's happened before. So, does her head go down? Does she look at something? What? It just depends. What could happen next? It's very strange. It's very strange. In the second film, I had the idea that there would be sort of a Frankenstein theme. But that was really about it. And there'd be a lab. There had to be a lab. Yeah, it was weird. And the bees kind of came in a little bit later, actually, after I'd already started. I like insects. I guess you probably noticed.
So where do they come from? I mean, what are the non-film sources where you get your other images?
Well, initially it was all clip art books, so those are books of copyright-free images, and there are a lot of insects in those books, because there were just a lot. I don't know why. They must have been a popular subject. And any spooky animal, like bats, snakes, there's more of that stuff. But then also 19th century illustrations. As I got more and more into this, I keep finding new sources. So the pre-Raphaelite illustrators are a big source, particularly actually for these two films. So I have one other film. It's a trilogy they're all kind of related, but yes, they all use the same essential source material.
And what about the scoring?
Oh yeah, well I should have mentioned that these were scored by different composers. So the visual material is all finished, and then at the very end of the process, I work with a composer and in a kind of collaboration. And the first one was Larry Polanski, who's a new music composer that I had met at a residency, the last film you saw, that was actually the music and sound were composed by Lech Jankowski, who some of you might be familiar with from the Brothers Quay, Street of Crocodiles. He did that film also.
Okay. So just like Lynn Hirschman, I mean, your films are often seen in the context of museum exhibitions. I mean, and I've seen them with the collages in frames.
Right.
Around
right. And the scale is something that actually interests me. The size, they're very small. They're 4.5 by 5 inches, 4 by 5.5 inches, so they're tiny. And then, but when you see them on the screen, of course, I don't know, there's just something interesting about I think that scaling process. And I mean, I can do this work because animation does hold a kind of amazing ability for people who like to do it it has a magical quality. I mean, at the end of every day, even if you've only done 15 images, they move. And there's just something about that for whatever reason I find very satisfying. So.
Give anybody else a chance if they have any questions? Yeah, back there, Vanessa. Could you stand up so I can hear you?
Yeah.
I'm curious, because in the credits you have editors, but I always think like that you would be editing if you're cutting live movies. So what do those editors do on film?
Well, you're right. So the thing is that I'm a total Luddite. I can't edit. I don't know how. So, so I have an editor who I sit with him and tell him how to lay the thing down in Final Cut Pro. I just don't know. I don't know how to do it. I know I have very strange, I hate machines. So even though I'm a filmmaker, I have, and that's why my work is on paper also, because I had some very bad experiences initially trying to be an animator and working under the camera. And I would I just can't do it right. So I make the paper component because I can reshoot really easily. And that's why, it's very unusual for a collage animator to work like I do. Most of them move the paper, elements of paper as they're shooting. But if you screw up, you have to redo the whole thing. So my tremendous fear and knowledge that I probably would screw up has led me to make everything, over and over and over. It's very obsessive, but it's protects me from that. But anyway, yeah. And then I just don't know how to do it, so it's good to have somebody who really knows how.
It's back there.
Hi.
Hi.
I really enjoyed the animation. I don't know if I'm overthinking this, but did at any time, one editors come into mind? The first one felt very much naturalistic, the second one felt more scientific.
Speak up a little bit.
What was that again? The first one?
Felt very naturalistic,
Naturalistic.
and the second one felt more scientific.
Oh, yeah.
Both were giving away parts of themselves.
Well, I was thinking about parenthood in the second film, because, she makes a creature. And so, yeah, there's things I'm thinking about. In the first film, I was thinking, honestly, and it's not something that anyone has really brought up a lot, even though it's kind of obvious, but I was thinking a little bit about aging and just, biological processes that you can't control. But I've had several artists, especially with the film Night Hunter, which was the first film you saw, tell me that for them it's about the creative process, and they're quite convinced. So, but it's weird. When you make a film, there's the things you're thinking about, and then there's the thing you make, and then there's the way audiences respond to it. But you're absolutely right; those things were definitely on my mind. I mean, in the first film, where the natural world is just overwhelming the domestic environment and her body, and then in the second film, there was this thing thinking about science and the sort of this trying to control a subject, like a parent trying to control a kid or a scientist trying to figure out something about its subject. I don't know. It was just I was just really, I spent a long time making these, so I think about a lot of stuff, and then they just do what they do, because I'm very limited by the fact that my materials, I can't create them myself, I have to find them. So I get, that pushes me in some directions.
Yes, over here. Yeah, as long as you're here.
Lovely films. Comment and a question. I believe that The Wind is a Texas film. Maybe the first Texas film produced by a woman.
Really?
So yeah, so I have to look it up. So there's a piece of Texas history in your film. And then a question I was curious about. This material, or these materials, is a very interesting period. The end of the 19th century, Victorian era, the beginning of the 20th century. These young film stars, female melodramas. What is it about that period, if anything, that you think attracted you to this material?
Well, I wasn't just attracted to this material. I think I like objects that have a sense of timelessness. I think I just like that. I love Cornell's boxes, and I love things that are, I don't know, and I think, I mean, there's obviously a nostalgic aspect to it as well, but of course, when I started using these actors, what I really discovered that was interesting was how emotionally expressive I could make them be, even more than they actually are in the original films. And so I can actually hold their expressions for longer than you see them in the original films that they made. And I just found them psychologically so interesting. And everyone, you know, there is that thing of the early actors, kind of, especially say Mary Pickford, who's the scientist in the second film, she kind of overdoes things. But so I had to always tamp her down, you know, and find the moments where she wasn't quite going too far. And so I don't know. There's something they're kind of fascinating, and but I think more than anything else, it's just there's a dreamlike quality to the atmosphere I'm trying to create. There's something about kind of waking dream that I think I'm kind of aiming for. And and I think there's the black and white, the fact that it makes you think about memory because it's all old. All of those things I think kind of suit the project I'm trying to create. They just for me anyway, they work for these strange films that I'm making. So yeah, I think that's it.
I think it's enviable that you could really cast any actor. It's not alive that you like, and Lillian Gish and Janet Gaynor and Mary Pickford. Are there any other dead actors that are in your plans for the future?
Well, I am starting a new project, and I am using Lillian Gish and Janet Gaynor again. Mm-hmm. And I'm also thinking about using Louise Brooks. But she's a kind of strange actor. Mm-hmm. It's funny,
but the most contemporary of them all, seeming that is.
She's sort of a projection concept. I don't know. Anyway, we could talk about it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them that I admire a lot, and I also really like some more contemporary actors, but we'll just see.
Stacey, thanks so much for coming, and thank all of you.
Thank you so much for being here.